Justin Bowery Spencer is making his way up, and he's going to present to us now on empowering local scale stewardship actions by Great Barrier Reef tourism operators, and Justin's from the Reef Authority.
Thank you. Good morning, my name is Justin and I'm representing the Reef Authority today. I'm going to be speaking about the Tourism Reef Protection Initiative, which right now is empowering these local scale stewardship actions that we've been hearing about with operators all across the Great Barrier Reef. Of course, before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're meeting today, the Gimli-Wallabarri people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and thank us for having us on their traditional lands today. I'd like to further extend this to the 70 or more traditional owner groups whose country we now call the Great Barrier Reef today. And in this time where caring for the natural environment is more important than ever, I'd like to acknowledge those who have cared for this country for tens of thousands of years. Now, as the name suggests, the Tourism Reef Protection Initiative is solely focused on one specific industry, the Great Barrier Reef marine tourism industry. It's a fleet of over 500 vessels that traverse the entire 2,300 kilometre length of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park. The operators that make up this fleet visit hundreds of individual reef sites, and as we've heard from some of those operators, tend to visit the same sites each day. There's no one on this planet who spends more time immersed in the Great Barrier Reef than tourism operators and their staff. Now, these tourism operators have long played a role in the monitoring and the protection of the Great Barrier Reef in partnership with the Reef Authority. They act as the most frequent source of information, and they provide an early warning system when threats or impacts to the reef arise. Since 2007, tourism operators have submitted over 5,000 tourism weekly surveys through the Eye on the Reef program. The Eye on the Reef program is the official community monitoring tool of the Great Barrier Reef, and it's a collaborative tool utilised by both state and federal governments, including the Reef Authority, Queensland Parks, Australian Institute of Marine Science, as well as our industry, community and scientific partners. The Tourism Weekly Survey specifically were a tailored survey designed for the tourism industry. These are high-frequency surveys conducted at high-value tourism sites on a regular basis. In 2020, though, of course, the global COVID-19 pandemic put a stop to this information. It grounded the marine tourism fleet with no certain date to return. And this interrupted a long-running data set and a vital pipeline of information was cut off in the midst of an emerging disturbance event. Unfortunately, not much could be done during that time, but several months later, as restrictions did begin to ease, marine park managers looking to kickstart those data sets while simultaneously supporting a grievously wounded tourism industry, formulated the Tourism Industry Activation and Reef Protection Initiative. Now, this aided in activating dormant marine tourism assets, restarting monitoring efforts, and scaling up reef protection efforts at the high-value sites that these operators were already demonstrating stewardship over. Now, whilst the primary goal of the activation, to activate the marine tourism assets, was successful, the influx of data and delivery of reef protection services during this time exceeded expectations. During the short few months that this initiative was active, more than 2,100 surveys of reef health was submitted through the Eye on the Reef monitoring system. As well as this, high-value sites all across the reef were protected through the control of coral predators and research and assisted recovery actions at these stewardship sites. This initiative served as a proof of capacity of what this industry was potentially capable of, and what an industry full of passionate and capable individuals could deliver. And the incredible outputs of the tourism industry activation identified a significant opportunity, and that was for tourism operators to act as suppliers to the Reef Authority to conduct monitoring and reef protection at these high-value sites that they were visiting. And this idea formed the idea, this was the foundation of the idea for the Tourism Reef Protection Initiative. The initiative was launched as part of the Australian Government's investment through the Reef Protection Package. And after a tender process, 26 tourism operators, some of which we've already heard from over the last 2 days, thank you to Eric, thank you to Nicole, 26 tourism operators were engaged throughout the Great Barrier Reef. These operators were engaged to target 109 identified priority reefs, which have been highlighted in the graphic to the right there. And as you can see, these reefs were identified for a number of different reasons, including we wanted to make sure that the entire length of the Great Barrier Reef was captured. We have a breadth of inshore, mid-shelf and outer barrier reefs, as well as consideration to where tourism operators existed already to ensure that the access to these reefs were possible. There'll be a bit more information on the principles of stewardship and to why some of these reefs were selected by my colleague Johnny Gaskell later on today. The initiative, though, was built upon the scientific principles of coral reef management, and simplified, this means developing an understanding of a reef site, as we've just heard Eric explain, through monitoring and then taking actions to protect biodiversity and making it informed decisions on if, when and how to undertake assisted recovery actions. Now, the core services that operators are being contracted to deliver as part of this initiative are based upon the principles of stewardship. To be eligible to participate in this industry, the operators were required to show evidence of environmental protection, and this included things like adhering to all permit conditions, delivering low to no impact tourism activities, and committing to responsible reef practices. The foundation of stewardship is then based on the understanding of a reef site. Monitoring and assessment conducted through the Eye on the Reef system of surveys develops the operator's knowledge of how their site functions, as well as providing that vital management data to the Reef Authority. This knowledge is used to effectively manage disturbances with the control of coral predators such as crown-of-thorn starfish and drupala snails, as well as response actions to these larger scale disturbance events. Effective interventions to assist natural recovery are then added in with the foundational knowledge that has been gathered through these surveys, providing insight into the most efficient methods, if any, for each particular site. This is the core of the Tourism Reef Protection Initiative, and it's further enhanced with other packages such as the development of educational and interpretive content to share the knowledge gained through this initiative with the wider community. The initiative is ongoing. We're now in our 7th quarter of delivery of these activities. So whilst these do continue and we continue to get more data coming in, we now have a good picture of what the initiative has been able to achieve. So we'll go through a few of the stewardship outcomes now. Firstly, it was very important to ensure that the data collected is high quality data. So the Reef Authority has invested in training and upskilling over 150 new surveyors in the Eye on the Reef monitoring methodologies. This has been especially vital to help to counteract the higher than average turnover that the industry has been facing during and following the COVID-19 pandemic. Importantly, the surveyors that have been trained have been shown to be actively participating in monitoring the Great Barrier Reef. In fact, our average monthly surveyors have shot up by over 4 times from pre-COVID numbers. Vitally, and perhaps our primary goal, is the industry has contributed to the largest monitoring effort in the Great Barrier Reef's history. From tourism operators alone, we have received over 15,500 surveys of reef health using those Eye on the Reef survey systems. Included in this is weekly checks at the high priority stewardship sites, and every one of the operators in the initiative has committed to stewardship over at least one site, with many committing to stewardship over multiple sites. Additionally, more than 70,000 images have been taken, uploaded and processed using the Australian Institute of Marine Sciences Reef Cloud AI system, and this is helping to gather a benthic assessment of those high-value stewardship sites. All of this and more is contributing to the clearest picture of marine health that managers have ever been able to ascertain at these high-value sites. And this has been critical over the past summer as we see elevated disturbance events on the Great Barrier Reef. Now, I'm aware that not everyone may be familiar with some of these methods that I'm talking about. So, to convert it into what this effort actually translates into, through the Reef Protection Initiative so far, we have seen over 8,000 hours spent in water conducting just these surveys alone. These have been conducted over 2,700 activity days on water. Included in those days is around 2,200 days, which has been assessing and, where necessary, controlling the coral predator populations at these sites. And as a result, almost 300 unique reef sites across the entire length of the marine park have been monitored, assessed and protected on a regular basis, generally at least once per quarter. Because no good deed goes unpunished, as well as that, around 800 days have been spent contributing the data from this project. And included in this is processing and submitting the survey data, but critically is submitting the photos and training the machine learning models as part of the Reef Cloud system. As well as that is the development of the packages I mentioned before, such as the educational and interpretive packages. So the knowledge that the operators are gaining through these surveys is in turn enabling them to develop and tailor stewardship programs to the individual sites that they visit. There are widespread efforts going on right now by these operators through predator control and considered site interventions. And these operators can assist not only the sites that they target, but the neighbouring areas through the spillover effects that we see. All of this is guided through the development of the site stewardship plans, which are uniquely formulated for each operator and developed in partnership by the Reef Authority and the individual operators. In turn, tourism sites are some of the most comprehensively known and studied sites on the Great Barrier Reef. The initiative is pushing these levels of knowledge to like they've never been before. This knowledge is helping tourism operators all across the reef to educate and inspire guests like never before with the increased knowledge of their sites. It's ensuring that operators are able to provide reliable and robust data to coral reef managers. It's ensuring the operators can make informed and calculated decisions regarding the interventions they deploy at their sites. And I think most importantly, it's instilling a culture of site stewardship throughout the tourism industry for now and into the future. I think this initiative is proving that the future of the Great Barrier Reef, as has been echoed many times throughout this symposium, is brightest with a focused, collaborative effort to drive decisions. While we strengthen our relationships with tourism operators contracted, they in turn have continued to build upon new and existing relationships with sea country owners of the areas of the reef that they visit. This has seen the enablement of mapping of cultural heritage sites, connection to country visits, collaborative projects between traditional owner groups and tourism operators, and training opportunities. We're attempting to foster that two-way learning space for tourism operators and traditional owners to learn from each other and collaboratively shape the future of the Great Barrier Reef. In closing, I believe it's clear to all in the room and everyone at this symposium that effective management and preservation of the Great Barrier Reef involves a collaborative effort. It involves a large range of stakeholders, but critically, it includes tourism operators, it includes traditional owners, alongside reef managers, as well as the wider scientific community. Tourism operators simply cannot be overlooked. They operate a fleet of hundreds of vessels. They employ a wide range of skilled, experienced, and the most passionate individuals you will find on the reef. This initiative has started to show what this industry is capable of delivering in just a short 1.5 years that we've been active so far. I'm excited to see what this industry can continue to contribute in the future. If there's one take-home message, we should never underestimate the scale that the positive impact this industry can have on coral reef management all around the world, nor the depth of skill and passion that exists within these industries. Thank you.
Justin, quick question from the room, and I do want to check if we've got any questions online. I'll come over to you, Cedric, because you had your hand up first. It's for the people online.
You mentioned 15,000 surveys that were there. Are they available for the public to get access to, considering they were uploaded online, I'm supposing? So is there any way to access that? And if not, why not?
It's a yes and no answer. Yes, the data is available through the Marine Park Authority's website in the Reef Knowledge System, but it is aggregated to areas. The reason for that is we want to make sure that tourism operators have no concerns with uploading data. For example, crown of thorns starfish data, bleaching data. If that was made public to each individual operator, some operators will have the concern of that negatively impacting the business, so we can't release the data tailored to the operator. So instead, to ensure that they're able to confidently give this data to reef managers, they do submit it, it does go public, but it's as I said, aggregated per area of the reef.
Thank you. One last quick question from the room, and while we're asking this, if Paige might like to start making her way to the front. Thank you.
Good morning, Chelsea from Foster Group Consulting. Inquiry with you, would you be interested in expanding that same process for estuarine and local marine drain systems?
I guess this one's specifically focused on tourism sites, which there aren't so many of in that sort of environment. We do actually have one that's already included though. So there's a estuary down off 1770 that actually has coral reef existing in it in Pancake Creek. We actually have one of our uphitters, and that's one of their primary stewardship sites down there. So where it's appropriate, those sites absolutely are included. But given that it is focused on coral reefs, it does shrink the number that might be affected.
Thank you so much. We can keep the conversation going. Thank you very much, Justin.